is this working here? Am I live on X? Alrighty, I guess my system is delayed here. So it's a little wonky for our first try. So I'm testing out the preview here. It's looking like the X stream shows up properly, but the Rumble preview does not. So nevertheless, let me get all my friends into the space here. My system is delayed here. So it's a little wonky for our first try. So I'm testing out the preview here. Audio preview. It's looking like... All right, okay, so now it's not taking in Mac OS, but I need that for the spaces here. So now let me put this window here. I'll put this window here. Is it not working again? What just happened? I have to like watch myself. Excuse me while I get this set up. All right. In the meantime, let's get all my friends. What the hell? You guys always take forever to enter the spaces. Let me send it again in our messages. Then I'll get started for anybody who's watching the recording or anybody who is going to or watching now. Alrighty. Okay. I presume that if the preview goes through on X, the preview also goes through on YouTube. It's more likely that it works on YouTube instead of X. Alrighty. Give this a go here, and I guess I'll see what it looks like after in the recording. In the meantime, welcome to Marchese Daily. This will be our new segment. And I'll start by my usual intro, which is, dear friends, dear family, and of course, dear seething freaks that stalk me from Twitter, welcome to Marchese Daily. This will be my new segment wherein I finally arrived at an organization and an idea for a daily show. This will be airing around 7 a.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time, where I will start by going over some recent news and political stuff so I could analyze that for everybody from the perspective of an American first patriot, and based and red-pilled on all the relevant facts and questions, as many of you on my Twitter know. I will also go through something I saw throughout Twitter for the day for a psychoanalysis or some kind of socio-cultural analysis of something going on. Some of those topics you may already know would include the dating discourse, fitness-related stuff, other political stuff, cultural whatever, and so on. And all of that will amount to a little bit more of a guide for everybody to better understand themselves and their lives and how to go about getting your eyes on the prize and finding the fulfillment. I have a space attached to this here, although I'm going to have to work out the details on whether or not that... Or actually, never mind. I think I already figured out. I have to get this to allow the speaker output from my computer into this system here as a source for the OBS. But I think that'll work out once I have everybody in the spaces. We'll test that out. So that'll be the third part of my show. And then at the end, once I'm approved through the super chat system, I guess they have to review it and everything. I'll be able to have a super chat segment of the show. That's where you give me money and I look into your take. And I promise you, you're going to see me rage if you start asking me things like, what's a good chest workout? How do you do this? Okay, so I want to work out 3 times a week. Thoughts? You're going to get flamed, you're going to get roasted, but perhaps that's fun to you. So let me check our space here. Still nobody's in. I wonder if there's something wrong with setting up a desktop space. I'll leave it open here. I think that's all set. In the meantime, let's start with our first topic, Method 00. That is the foundational elements to Marchese methods, wherein I was about 17 years old and I arrived at a handful of rationalizations about what the real goal is for fitness, working out, that sort of thing, and how it relates to a better sense of self-confidence and self-esteem, and all of that stuff associated. Getting a little hot and bothered and nervous here doing my first live stream, although I'm sure I'll get over it eventually. Let me do this here. That'll probably help. Alrighty. Throw it on the floor here. Alrighty. Oh, we have an IRL friend in the space here. Let me add him as a speaker. We might do a little bit of dialogue shortly after this intro here. I'll start with the Method 00. I'll make him a speaker with the verified check. Hold on, I got to check in with him on this once he goes along with the speaker invite here. I'll keep a close eye on it. In the meantime, I'll actually open this up here. Yo, what's up, bro? I invited you as a speaker. It might be a little bit wonky because I'm doing this on desktop here. You're still showing up to me as a listener. And we're live right now, dude. We're live. What's going on, guys? It's Marchese Methods here. Can't slip up and say my first name because me and my friends have made that joke endlessly when I first started this. You know, what's going on, guys? The stupid, corny intro. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting on this to set up here, he can send me a message. Let me open some kind of messaging. Here, I'll open up in a browser window, another browser window of Twitter where he can message me. Let me try one more time. Invite a speaker with the blue check. So let's go. Bro's going to like max me hard AF. My total on my stream broadcasting here is saying that I have a total of 17. Let's go. Let's go. 17, road to 1K, road to 10K, road to 1 million concurrent watchers. Bookmark this now, because one day it's going to happen. I always know it's going to happen. This is how we do it. Marchese mentality. So anyway, all that's a little bit of being a spurg about all this systematic setup here. So what is Method 00? So a lot of what I talk about already in all the multitudes of my writings and my videos is about how the fitness problem is primarily a behavior change problem. All the information's out there. Google's free. Even easier now is AI. AI can just answer any possible question framed any possible way to get you to arrive at whatever kind of system that you want to set up related to fitness, gym, whatever. But I suspect, and this is no based a friend, but I've come across a handful of fitness-esque conversations on Twitter and amongst friends and all of that. And all of this still is not really seeming to get through to people because they're sort of inundated with all this nascent fitness hacking culture that I've already excoriated multiple times. That's like neurotic and way too preoccupied with this gay and cringe optimization stuff and all the heckin' science and heckin' studies that all amounts to this endless search for the easy way out, an endless search for being able to do the fitness thing without having to work out. That's what optimization means, essentially, right? More for less. Now, ostensibly, that seems like a good idea, except really, in typical fashion, classical cope theory enters the mind, and sure enough, you have people half assing all the time and all that. So, that's my basic behavioral premise. So, method 00 starts with, and I'll leave it at that because I've gone in, at this at length, and this space is more so designed to go into something perhaps I've overlooked or perhaps is still a earnest problem that's overlooked, and that is this informational problem. So step one of method 00 is to have this awareness of quit being a classical cope theorist and take it seriously to the point of going 6 times a week, not 3, not doing gay little push-pull legs, 5 exercises, do fucking 10, 3 reps, and we'll get into that anyway. So now, how do you do that? How do you cross that threshold? Essentially, all it really is you have to rationalize or arrive at a value proposition for the gym and discipline in and of itself. The value proposition, most of the time, amounts to what you can call consequential morality or consequential values. Go to the gym for XYZ health result. Go to the gym to get pussy. Go to the gym to attract XYZ. Go to the gym to feel better about yourself. Now, what's interesting, though, is that the feel better about yourself part is a value system that's more so a consequence of a valuation of something else, and that is discipline and fitness and working out and weightlifting in and of itself. Because that's the only way to make it stick. Because what happens when you get the results? Let's say the summer body thing. Well, what happens when the summer's over? You just wind up getting fat again. Oh, to get laid or something. Well, what happens when you get married then? And you sort of have this tacit, latent sensation that you're going to get laid. Excuse me. Regardless. So I'm showing 23 or so on my thing here. Let me just check, but I'm not seeing anybody show up anywhere else. I would imagine that 20 something is from Twitter instead of Rumble and YouTube, because I'm super small on Rumble and YouTube. I just made my Rumble account LOL like yesterday. But I'll keep checking in. I'll monitor my Twitter messages. If you are seeing this or if there's any kind of problem, I am monitoring my Twitter DMs for any sort of emergent information and the like about my live stream here or any issues. So now, value proposition. Valuing discipline in and of itself. The way I did it is I viewed it as an angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, and I valued agency and free will and to break free from the chains of dopaminergic, addictive, lizard brain optimization behavior. Long story short, you skip the gym mostly because you are beholden to feelings and pleasantries and so on. So you should value, especially as it pertains to masculinity, this larger scale crisis of masculinity, let's say, which isn't for the reasons that everyone says the gay little men need to freaking do their dirty hands or whatever. That's gay and retarded, but that's a separate conversation. But I need to put it out there that I'm based on that question and not going to give you some gay neckbeard, beer and booze masculinity diatribe about that. So amidst this crisis of masculinity, there's an element to masculinity that is agency and free will, and that transmutes to a sense of leadership. And when you have that sense of leadership, when you have that sense of you can take charge over yourself, it exudes being able to take charge amongst a group of people. You are not beholden to anything other than yourself, specifically your rational faculties. And of course, we can extend that to, well, what are rational faculties? And ultimately, we arrive at the conclusion that is God and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But that, again, is a little bit extensive for this. So, step 2. Now, here's the informational part. Step 2. Which is also, in a way, a value proposition. We're not here to get healthy. We're not here to get fit. We're here to become sexed up freak beast monsters. And I use that vernacular because whenever you look up something about health or fitness and all that, what's considered healthy or fit? Just basically not fat. Now, if you allow yourself to be infected with this poison from WebMD.com and all this gay faggotry about fitness and the like and so on, you will have a problem of all of the prescriptions leading you to just being sort of a mediocrity. So get in your head that you don't just want to be heckin' fit. You don't just want to be not fat. And we all want this. Anybody who says otherwise is coping. People have come back at me by saying things like, well, not everyone wants the same things you do. Not everyone wants $1 million. This is the physical version of wanting $1 million. Everyone wants $1 million. The question just becomes allowing yourself to be subordinate to other things in light of that. But ultimately, we have our goals that we cannot hide from. We cannot allow ourselves to be beholden to. We have our ultimate goals. Sorry, I'm getting distracted trying to monitor everybody. We have our ultimate goals. I'll actually add this. I think I'm familiar with this person here. Well, I'll stand by. I'll keep everybody muted for now so I could get through this part. So ultimately, you can't hide from your conscience. You can't hide from yourself. And I was in an RCIA list past week, and we talked about that part in Genesis where Adam and Eve are suddenly self-conscious of their nakedness and they're hiding from God. But ultimately, you cannot hide from God. If you're off put by the idea of God, you could just think of God as your conscience if you're like a secularite type. So you can't hide from your conscience. So with the fitness stuff, you can't rationalize with yourself that you want to just be not fat. You want to be just healthy. You want to just be able to do X, Y, Z thing. No, you want to be a sexed up freak fucking beast. Not for the reason you think. When I say sexed up, that's not for the reason of attracting more people, attracting greater and greater sexual attention and access and all that. And I'll get into that shortly. So what does that amount to? The difference with that is, a scrawny dude who has like his little veins sticking out in his forearms. We remember as adolescents, people talking about things like skinny abs or something like that, where it like doesn't count or something like that. It's juvenile, but there's actually some truth to it. So as a man, you don't just want to be fit or healthy. You want to be big. You want to be strong. You want to be muscular and all of that. And you'll see throughout my Twitter, I'll go over every cope excuse that suggests otherwise. So all that's to say, that precipitates or precedes. I was looking up precipitate the earlier day, vocab maxing, and I think I mix that word up sometimes. So I'll use precedes for now. That precedes, that mentality, that goal precedes serious results in the gym because now you have a different prescription for your weightlifting that you're going to do. And that is this. And I've written about this at length, but I'll say it here too. Got to say it a million times. Method 00 with lifting is as simple as this. Step 1, you want strength and size. So what number of reps and sets accommodate both of those at a commensurate level? That is 3 or so sets. Okay, you could really do more, but let's just go with a bare minimum of 3 for now. And weight, where 6 to 8 reps is the most you can do. Not where 6 to reps is feasible, not where 6 to 8 reps is sort of okay and all of that, but where 6 to 8 is roughly the most you could get every set amongst the 3 sets. How much do you rest between each set? As much as you sort of gauge it takes for you to be able to do 6 to 8, again, with 6 being the bare minimum. Now, why is that so? When you're weight, your body has this optimization where it will deploy different kinds of muscle fibers for the task. So to wiggle my fingers like this, I always mix it up, ironically. It's either fast twitch or slow twitch. And why is that so? There are muscle fibers amidst each muscle that accommodate lighter movements, and it's more optimal for those to be used because they're capable of fast twitching so that you don't have to recruit slower twitch. It's sort of like acceleration. Something that's lighter or more snappy or something like that will require less force, less input to make it accelerate to go and all of that. So fast twitch or slow twitch. I always mix that up. Let's just go with fast twitch for now. Double check though. And fast twitch is for tasks and they go all the way up to weight, we'll say, where the most amount of reps you could get is 1 to 10. Now notice that's a huge range, and that is because fast twitch will still get, both fast twitch and slow twitch get activated. It's just that when the weight is 1 to 10, more so on, or excuse me, not 1 to 10, 1 to 8 is for strength, excuse me. 5 to 12 is for the fast twitch, we'll say, where your muscles will recruit much faster, whatever it is. So 5 to 12, and that type of movement, your body has to respond by putting on muscle, by making your muscle cells bigger to accommodate the lactic acid that your body has to produce to continue those light contractions. That's that burnout sensation you do. So 5 to 12 to build muscle. Now, simultaneously, it's not like only certain literal fibers of all your fibers get activated. It's just which ones are recruited most strongly and most heavily. So in that case, 5 to 12, there's that set of fibers that recruit more heavily and are more responsible for the weight exercise that you are doing. Weight where 5 to 12 is the most you could get in this case, by the way. Now, that is for training muscular size. To train muscular strength is where the most amount of reps you could get in the weight is 1 to 8. And this was what I read literally 12 years ago, so it floats around this now. Some people will say things like 1 to 6, 1 to 5, or whatever. Other reports will say 5 to 8 or 5 to 10, 7 to 8 to 12, whatever it is. You can understand the dichotomy here of challenge that produces strength and challenge that produces muscular size. Now, let's say you're like me, and I thought at the time, well, I don't want to get strong without looking the part, and I don't want to look the part without being strong. Now, if you notice, 1 to 8 and 5 to 12. So where's that overlap range? 6 to 8 reps, wherein both your muscular size and your muscular strength are developed commensurately. And I'll take questions because every time I do this, I can think of the 10 billion copes or questions and all of that stuff. Earnest questions too. So I'll get to that at the end here if anybody has any. If you're watching the recording or something, message me your question or comment a question. Actually, comment a question. Boost the engagement, all right? I got to get famous here. Okay. So 6 to 8 reps, muscular size and strength at the same time. Now, how do you do your split? Well, here's a problem with this push-pull legs idea. It'll amount to something. Now, there's a charitable understanding of this, and then there's a cope interpretation. So I'll start with the cope. The cope is like 4 or 5 exercises that take at most 45 minutes to an hour to complete. Excuse me. To complete. And it'll be like let's say on push day, it'll be 1 chest exercise, 1 shoulder exercise, 1 tricep exercise, and then they always throw in some gay random thing like calves or something like that, or heckin' abs. Do heckin' ab blast or burnout in the end so you could feel all good and like full of yourself. The problem is, and let's even bump that up. Let's even say there's 10 exercises or something like that. And it's 2 for each muscle, 3, whatever. The problem is that you might feel a burn or something because when you do chest, you're also doing shoulders and triceps. And when you do shoulders, you're doing shoulders and triceps. So you think, but the problem is when you only have 1 or 2 exercises that force that one muscle as the primary loaded muscle, the primary one responsible for the movement, and you only have that one, when other muscles function secondarily to a movement, let's say push, shoulder press or something like that. Let's say in this push example, your triceps are secondary. So you might think you're working them or something like that, but you really haven't pushed them to their limits because when they are at a secondary level, secondarily engineering, pushing force onto the movement, naturally they're not going to be challenged sufficiently, independent of the other muscular systems too. So what you have there is you don't give any of your muscles a real chance to develop fully independent of one another and for them to be sufficiently challenged at length, extensively. So what do? You have to do the proverbial bro split that's supposed to be, the cardinal sin, the original sin against this fitness stuff, since circa 2020 when the big cope industry blew up online about all of this. So you have to do the proverbial bro split. Now, the difference is that when you do the bro split, you're also not just doing fucking 3 to 5 exercises for those muscles. You are doing, like, I would say if you're a super raw beginner, 5 to 7. And then you're going to graduate very quickly to like 8 to 10 exercises, 3 sets, 6 to 8 reps on all of it, with the exception of bullshit stuff like cables and all that, but we'll get into that another time. So, checking my systems here. So you do the proverbial quote-unquote bro split. And you could go through my Twitter. It's under one of my threads called Marchese Muscle. It's already a few days old, and I tweet a lot like a maniac. So you're going to have to search up Marchese Muscle. You'll see it'll come up. It's like, the first part of the Marchese Muscle quote threads. And you'll see my workout as an example of this bro split. That's much more serious. Because what are you actually aiming for? You're not just aiming for, when you do this push-pull legs thing, you might feel good. You might feel like you worked out. You might feel like you put out energy. But the goal isn't to just feel like you exhausted yourself. You do want to exhaust yourself as a challenge to your discipline, as a challenge to your pleasure principle. But that's not the end all be all, especially because you could just like go on the stair, like you could just do run and jumps to get that sensation like you actually pushed out energy. But of course, the runs and jumps, the memes of like, middle-aged women will do anything but work out seriously, those memes that were circulating around a little while. If you want to just feel like you put out some kind of la-di-da energy, you could just do that. And we all know the results of that. You're not going to get sexed up. Getting sexed up is a crafting of your muscles. It's an engineering of your musculature. So with this bro split, proverbial bro split, that's the real based way to work out, you have an actual serious construction of each muscle, biceps, triceps, and all of that, such that you do yield that physique where your musculature is developed. You have the V shape. Your muscles are full. They're rich. They look like they're glowing, that sort of thing. And they also all get stronger. And when they get stronger, ironically, you're going to be putting out a lot of energy. I think about my leg day. My leg day, one of the final iron pills is leg day becomes your favorite day because you're going to be pulling 3-4 plates or something like that. That most certainly requires a lot of caloric force for all 6 to 8 reps that I do with that. So this idea of the goal is to feel like you're exhausted is not true. And then, of course, feeling exhausted is not the same thing as actually challenging your muscles to the point of breaking down. When they work secondarily, they might burn or something, or they might feel a little pumped up or something, but they're really not going to grow because they weren't sufficiently challenged beyond their current capabilities, independent of their movements or contribution to movements with other muscles. So all that's to say, essentially, 3 sets bare minimum. You could do 4 to 6. It really doesn't matter how many you do. 6 to 8 reps on as many exercises as possible, absent weird, corny stuff like muscle machines and cables and the like. And a serious bro split wherein you're doing, if you're even the most raw beginner, bare minimum of 5 to 7, and you could use my sample one on my Twitter page when you search my tweets for Marchese Muscle, and quote it if you have to, because I use both those words quite a bit. So you are doing this bro split, and because your muscles are sufficiently challenged, doing more than enough exercises, more than enough reps, and all of that, you actually build and grow and develop your muscles. And what is the value proposition here? It's every combination of the aforementioned discipline challenge, the acting with discipline for its own value in and of itself, and above all else, that consequence of working out like that and keeping that promise to yourself is the actual sense of confidence, because now you answer to yourself. You don't answer to your feelings, your pleasures, your impulses. You answer to yourself. And that is the part of confidence and all of that. Now, a quick note is that what is the benefit of doing this to the exclusion of cardio or something like that? Although cardio is good for your heart musculature, and that's a separate conversation. This method makes you not have to be neurotic about food choices, because what people overlook about food and the fat and all of that stuff is basal metabolic rate, which is a way to say the rate at which your body burns calories to exist. We've all heard of terms like homeostasis and some stuff like that. Your body has to burn calories to keep your organs alive, to make you talk, even move your eyeballs requires calories and the like. To keep your tissues alive, your body has to expend calories. So when you put on muscle, not only are these workouts actually serious growth and challenges and exertions of energy putting out calories, the breakdown and repair of your muscle takes calories. And then that added muscle tissue needs muscular calories to be kept alive. When they are kept alive, what does that need? That means you need more calories. That addition of calories needed to just keep yourself alive, your body responds by inciting you to eat more. And not so much, you don't want to take that and run with it and say, oh, I'm hungry, I'm feeding my muscles like a cope theorist. But all that's to say that if you kept your eating as it were right now and you exclusively worked out muscle by weightlifting and all of that, you will burn fat, because now you have the same calories you're inputting every day, but now the output, to include the increase in your basal metabolic rate, has increased. And now you're afforded the opportunity not to cope and to just pig out now because you're doing muscles. You might have seen me tweet about these fucking faggot bodybuilders who take this and run with it as a classical cope theory to run to McDonald's and pig out and fucking oink, literally on camera, fucking oink, like pathetic fucking single-celled amoeba organisms, completely missing the point and completely no different than a fat fucking pig, enslaved and beholden to their feelings, and implying that in no way are they worth any kind of respect for or reverence for their ability to conquer their impulses, that leadership, that respect, that ability to sequester their feelings. So don't take that and run with it. Just eat regularly. Don't worry about neurotic choices. Just the real basic premise there, pursuant to or with consciousness of your increase in basal metabolic rate, is going to be just eat the way you regularly would. Maybe don't go to the less packaging, the better. That's probably the best rule to go by with this sort of element to it. The more it's direct from a farm or direct from the earth or something like that, the better. The less steps in between that and to your plate, the better. That's really the only heuristic to go by at this point. If you're a beginner, or even if you're totally reinventing your weightlifting to do this method 00, Marchese method 00. So that's the note on the basal metabolic rate, leanness, and all of that stuff. That's how I've stayed lean relatively effortlessly, meaning that I haven't had to be neurotic about my food choices ever, because I consistently, both a combination of put on muscle, although eventually you reach your peak and all of that, but also the increase in my basal metabolic rate with the musculature. So now, a major cope that I want to elucidate or countermeasure is the cope that, well, this is still pursuant to looking a certain way for certain people and all of that. This is still pursuant to sex, and I'm a freaking alpha. I don't freaking care what girls think and how I look and all of that stuff. And the thing is, there comes a point where appearance as a product of being neurotic and gay about it, doing the gay, fruity fucking morning routines of skincare and all of that, that's where it is faux discipline and it is gay and effeminate, because it's not a byproduct of your character. But you still have an appearance. It's never going away. So you do want an appearance, but specifically an appearance that is congruent to your behavior and your character. You want your appearance to reflect your character. Now, if your appearance is a sexed up freak beast, what it reflects about your character is that discipline and is that leadership, congruence, masculinity, confidence, self-esteem, and strength of overcoming and sequestering those feelings and impulses and all of that, because every other version of fitness doesn't require that. Half-ass walking 30 minutes a fucking week, la-di-da fucking workouts, jump around and run and get your a little out of breath workouts. That's all bullshit. And on some level, your body belongs to you. Your body is a half of you. It is a gift to you. If you're Christian, you understand it is a gift to you bestowed by God, the vehicle through which you express the gift of life, and therefore warrants this kind of respect and this crafting of it and this development of it beyond just sort of expending energy, but actually the care of it and the valuation of your muscle tissue. Your muscle tissues are you. So why not craft them? Why not make them whole, rich, healthy, endlessly care for them? And then, of course, that appearance, you want that appearance because it is congruent to your character. Your appearance is a part of you as well. So that's the redress for that cope. Now let's go over nutrition. I have a handful of rules for nutrition that also serve to functionally to keep you from being a neurotic freak about like microplastics and gay shit like that, because it's not microplastics making you fucking fat, cope theorists. It's not fucking farm or factory beef that's keeping you fat. It's the fact that you're eating too much fucking beef and not putting on muscle. So the way to bulwark or buttress, I think buttress is the word. I'm not sure if buttress is positive or negative, whatever. Bulwark that neuroticism entails a handful of heuristics. Firstly, you do generally with the meat, chicken, beef, whatever, you do generally, as best you can, get the grass-fed, the omega-3 or whichever one's the better one, anti-inflammatory beef. It'll just help with your joints and all of that, and it'll, whatever it does in pursuant to the building of muscle as far as the quality of the protein. So that's part one. Part two is healthy fats, just like chill on, although there's argument now on what's healthy fat. So I would just say use combinations, butter, avocado oil, actual butter, not margarine, avocado oil, olive oil, all of those versions of fats. Those are especially pursuant to your hormonal secretion balances and all that, and your brain health and your brain capacity with this too. This is also pursuant to a more functional, healthy, rich brain, because your brain is your existence, your identity, who you are. So that we're also pursuing maximizing the functionality and the health and the richness of your mind. So you could be a genius and read books and make epically epic long monologues here. So now, step three, and this is actually probably the most salient part of this with the nutrition elements, and that is that the carb problem, it has this pathology to it. So firstly, haha, is butter a carb? Carbs in and of themselves aren't the problem. What carbs are, that carbohydrates are just what our body uses to remanufacture into blood sugar glucose, because your blood sugar glucose is also a carbohydrate. So there's this, plucking molecules on and off and that sort of thing that your body does to make it a useful form of energy that goes to your muscles. And then I forget what happens there. It breaks apart, produces ATP. That's all really super beyond the scope here. So the heuristic with chemistry is that if the words sound the same, and if the words sound the same, their molecular structures are the same or similar. So sugar is a problem because sucrose and glucose. Your body, sugar rush is because your body can very quickly and easily convert that into glucose. When it is converted into glucose, it floods your system. It sort of all dumps into your system all at once. When it dumps all into your system all at once, your body needs to use it right away. If it's not, it saves that energy and stores it in the form of fat. That's the basic problem of carbs, especially when it is sugar, fructose, and the like. And a fun aside to that is artificial sweetener, sucralose. That's why sucralose tastes like sugar, but it doesn't have a molecular structure such that your body can use it for calories and all of that. But that chemistry there is why it tastes sweet. It tricks you into thinking it's sugar. So what do? Well, you eat what's called more complex carbs. The complex carbs are carbohydrates that take a little bit more effort to break down. But what's also the problem here, if you eat a bunch of rice or something like that without much, well, we'll get into that shortly. Rice or other forms of more complex carbs, pasta or whatever, it all still sort of dumps into your system all at once and leaves you bloated and gives you like this blood sugar rush and all of that. And in fact, that's part of the problem of diabetes. Essentially, in response to that, your thyroid has to secrete insulin to absorb it and to deal with it and that sort of thing. And if you're dumping a ton all at once, all the time, it's sort of like the effect of pulling a rubber band all the way as far as it can very quickly, snapping it as far as it can all the way. Eventually, that acceleration and then contraction just breaks it. It's kind of like your car is cold in the winter, and instead of letting it warm up for a minute, you instantly floor it. And this is also sort of the problem with Ozempic. And then because of that, your thyroid just taps out, and that's the problem of diabetes, as an aside there. So it all dumps into your system. Your body doesn't want to let that energy go to waste. It stores as fat. So what's the solution? The solution is fiber. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but it has this effect, and I'm really not well read or informed anymore in the biological specifics, but that would be beyond the scope of this anyway. The whole point is not to overwhelm you, but essentially, fiber functions to force the carbohydrates to more so funnel, like a funnel, drip more slowly into your system and provide a sort of steady stream of carbohydrates in your system throughout the day. This functions to not make your body sort of rebound hunger, and you sort of tacitly listen to that hunger. And it also keeps the system flowing, and you're sort of using carbs. Carbs are coming into your bloodstream as they're needed. There's sort of a residual energy supply there as needed for the simple tasks, but also the complex tasks like weightlifting. A lot of dork faggots, take all of this stuff as an excuse to bring their faggy little huge 5-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids in the fucking gym to heckin' carb load, intra workout, blah, blah, blah. They just want to eat candy like little babies. This naturally, your body is a gift. Like, your body is so complex and so well functional for all of this stuff. You can surely trust that this doesn't imply that you don't have enough carbs going into your system for your workout. You can trust this steady stream, and you can trust what your body does in response to the task at hand of lifting and the like. So now this is related to calories in, calories out, but that's become so gay and such a trite thing. We all know the basic premise of that. We don't have to get too far into that. So as a review, value proposition, value discipline, value weightlifting itself, not the consequences, not the physiological health consequences. Value it in and of itself. Value what it implies for your agency. Value that it is an exercise of agency, free will, masculinity, strength, control, pursuit to a much richer, happier, transcendental life. Step 1. Step 2, stop coping and seething about healthy, fit, or all that. You have no fucking choice. You can't hide from yourself. You know what you want. You want to be a sexed up freak fucking beast. For men, the answer to that is, and this all applies to women too, by the way. I highly, highly encourage women to lift like this too, because that's the only way you grow that ass, right? The big fat dump truck, that like video that was circulating, the woman trainer, oh, you want to grow that big fat dump truck, right? That's the only way to do this. You're not going to just being a scrawny, boxy, mediocre, flabby, woman, that's not exciting. And particular to women, I mentioned the masculinity part. This does function to, and I know women will find this condescending, but the concept of penis envy, that really reduces to just an envy of the male predisposition to sequester their feelings such that they have that strength, discipline, power, agency. This functions to ameliorate that for women. It actually gives women that sense of power, agency, fulfillment, and this exercise for them to sequester their feelings as well. The usual copes about, I don't want to get too big, I don't want to invest in that much into it and all that. For comparison, women's free testosterone hovers in like under the 100 nanograms per deciliter. The lowest testosterone soy boy male hovers in like the 300 nanograms. And high T Chad alpha males hover in like the 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. Now, what does that mean? Does that, you might not really be familiar with that scale, but you can trust that that's a significant numerical difference such that you'll never look like a guy. And what classical cope theorist fags say looks like a guy is, and they're very obviously not on performance enhancing drugs, they're coping. And the short answer to what that pathology is, and you might have seen me arguing with this big account on this like a week ago, that pathology in short is assigning that masculinity because they vaguely sense that for a woman to ascertain that kind of physique with the abs and even some veins in some cases, they have to have a level of discipline that this male, these soy boy types do not have. A value of ability, a value of discipline and the like, well beyond that of his own, because he's a pussy, he's too beholden to his precious feelsy goodsies, but she's not. So they assign this masculinity. They call it that to shame it, to try to like speak into the collective unconscious. It shouldn't exist. It is illegitimate, unable to exist, such that it can sort of ameliorate their sensation of emasculation from that. And they presume that, well, I am bio-male, but since that requires a masculine character greater than masculine character than I have, that must be masculine. And usually what this amounts to is a woman that is charitably, unconventionally lean, like a full-on six-pack. But, like, can we all grow up with this, like, faggy, mid-type stuff? It's just fucking would or wouldn't. Would or wouldn't. If they cross the threshold of would, they're effeminate, they're attractive, done. Anything otherwise is faggy cope theory about, trying to do this value transaction proposition that is symptomatic of not having a true sexual, a true masculine sexuality. And that's actual porn brain, by the way, and I'll get into that another time. So all that's to say, I strongly, strongly encourage, this all applies precisely to women as well. So 6 to 8 reps, strength and size, craft the musculature, treat and value your musculature with care, build it, appreciate it, give that affection to it. And that's done through bro split, 3 sets minimum, 6 to 8 reps, grow up and quit being a pussy, do 7 to, if you're an absolute raw beginner, you've never so much as set foot in the gym in your life, maybe like 5 to 7 the first month or two. And then bump that right up to 7 to 10 exercises. Now, on that, I forgot to mention, as far as the specifics of the exercises, there is a stratagem to it that any bodybuilder will tell you, that there is ways to do. The reason there's all these different exercises that ostensibly do the same thing, right? Curls, what's the difference between curling like this or like this or like this or this, or, this way through chin-ups? There is a variation of contractions and the like that will actually target specific ways of development. Your muscles have separate sets of development, and this will all be way too nuanced for you. So all this is to say, their heuristic is go to, it used to be bodybuilding.com/exercises, and I tweeted about this. This was when in 2012, 2013, I found this. I clicked, there was a diagram of a guy and a girl. It pointed to each muscle. You click one, and it has a bunch of exercises sorted by highest rated on the website. So you can even just pick the top 10. That could be your heuristic. Your heuristic can be, for every barbell exercise, do the dumbbell version. Your heuristic could be, for every Barbell, dumbbell, you also incorporate that same thing, but with cables. Whatever it is, just go to one of those Now, the muscleandstrength.com/exercises has this now. The '07 salute, F for respects, bodybuilding.com took that section of their website down not too long ago, actually. I had taken a screenshot, which is sort of like a sentimental relic to 17-year-old me. It's in my article on how to start and keep weightlifting. So that's your heuristic for exercise choice. And make sure it is these specific muscles, okay? So if you're doing arms, arm day, like pull downs don't fucking count for arms. Things that don't isolate or assign biceps the primary responsibility for the movement, for the force, do not fucking count. That's where you get into the bro split, faggy, classical cope theory stuff. So that is our summary. And then all of this is to say the value proposition of discipline and the like is you have kept your promises to yourself. Imagine never again being preoccupied with this stuff and having to be neurotic about this stuff. For 12 years, that workout sample that you'll look up, it's basically been that with some exercises substituted in back and forth. Sometimes I'd have to do this later nuanced specific training that you'll understand much later on that I would suggest don't even really bother getting so into unless you're like a year or 3 deep into the gym. And I say a year or 3 because you can figure it out in a year to 3. You start getting into a nuance a little bit. And then as far as nutrition goes, basal metabolic rate from lifting weights and putting on muscle. Quality meat, food that is the less packaging, the better. The less steps between the farm or the ranch to your plate, the better. And throw in some fiber there. Some sources of fiber include the skins of fruits and vegetables. Beans are a great one, especially because they have protein too. And potatoes, specifically sweet potatoes, because there's like extra vitamins in them and the like. So that's that too. The second part of my title here is Women Should Lift Too. I already went over that a little bit, but women should most certainly lift too, because you want to craft your body and your physique too. And I would say it plays a special role for both men and women in establishing agency, particularly for women. It's just going to produce the sensation that you do have agency, you do have power, and it is going to ameliorate that sort of envy. And I don't say that to patronize. I think every woman can sense that they have this sort of latent envy for men that doesn't have actually anything to do with the societal structure. That's just what people say when they can't really articulate feelings and sensations and the collective unconscious very well. But women are also very astutely aware of interpersonal dynamics and can sense these types of things and inauthenticity and are much more skilled than the average male. And I will say too, the average woman is not more skilled than a skilled male at this type of thing. And so a lot of women will resort to patronizing men about understanding feelings and intersocial dynamics because fairly, the average male is like totally socially inept with this stuff. So it's like insufferable how simple it feels, but they don't get it. But anyway, so all that's to say that social understanding, that intuition amounts to essentially this envy for a male predisposition to overcome feelings and to sort of arrive at a place of sequestering them. The lifting is both sort of gives both a sense of agency. For men, it plays the role of sort of grounding their masculinity, and for women, it sort of plays the role of establishing and feeling and reconciling a sense of agency. Just try it. And you'll find your mind changes. Your perception will change a lot about are you really under some kind of oppressiveness? You might find yourself braver. I think this often amounts to in interpersonal conflicts. Women often feel like they can't speak their mind because of the fear of the guilt or the shame or the ostracization that comes from challenging somebody, particularly males. But when you have that predisposition, when you have that understanding and establishment of agency, you can overcome that. And you'll feel it. You'll feel the shame, the ostracization, and the like, but it won't deter you. A good version of understanding this is that, or a quote that's circulated is that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having the fear, but doing it anyway. That's really what that means. And then, yeah, eventually you exercise that enough, you just get so good that you very latently feel these sort of fears, pressures, oppressions, and the like. So I'm still seeing we're growing on our total here. So I'm using Rumble Studio to send to X and to YouTube, but it's having a difficult time showing me how many people are viewing on X. It's saying 0 on YouTube. It said 1 before. That sort of makes sense because my YouTube is smaller, but it says 49, but I have my space pulled up right here, and I'm not seeing much of any people listening. It purportedly has 0 people. So I'll make my final point here about the alcohol and cigarette cope. This should be quick, and then I'll message some people around and try to set up this issue with, people listening, or maybe it's just coping or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wishful imagining this right now and nobody's watching. I'm just speaking into the void, tweeting into the void here. Okay. So on the alcohol and cigarette cope. So this is a real fucking problem amongst the right wing. This is sort of a socio-political commentary here. This is becoming a real fucking problem. Now, the left and feminist types actually, and femoids, have this rightful observation. That is that a lot of the right wing is putting on a fucking act. The major difference psychosocially, we all sort of understood when we were adolescents that politics for most people amounts to just pathology meeting some kind of psychosocial guilt need, some sort of reconciliation, some sort of egotistical thing. Now, the left's version of that is sort of just like basically they just cope, rationalize that pleasure and pleasantries and hedonism is like valuable, is something to be valued, is something to live by. And we all vaguely sensed that. And the basic premise of why you become right-wing instead of left-wing is you reject that because it doesn't value agency, spirituality, and the like we just mentioned. But there's a fucking problem. They want to, because what opportunity does that present? That presents a embodiment of this sort of tough guy thing, this sort of strength, the image of strength. So now what they just fucking do is instead of challenge themselves to have strength, they just identify with the right wing and identify with this stuff to portray the image of strength, to portray the image of masculinity, of toughness. They want to appear tough without being tough. And a lot of this, what this comes to, is a combination of this excoriating, bullying others, or bullying the left for being coon brains. And this, the most prominent example of this is the porn stuff. Playing porn, it's degenerate. And I'm cool and I'm tough and I don't do that because I'm not beholden to the sensation with that. But suddenly, when it becomes, okay, well, let's extend that to fucking alcohol and cigarettes because it's still indulgent and still beholden to feelings. It is still degenerate. Neither of those serve any function. What do? Well, encroaching upon freedom all of a sudden. And it's not just libertarians that do this. It is based, fascist, goy, right-wing, natsock, epically epic, dissident rightoids. They also fucking do this. They also cope. And some of these copes are alcohol societies were the ones that ruled the world. So that's what tough guys do. Yeah, I don't think it's because of drinking alcohol that they ruled the fucking world. Faggot. Or cigarette. Cigarettes, nicotine actually raises testosterone and it's a nootropic and all this stuff. Okay, well then drink fucking caffeine if you're going to do all of that. And that's not why you fucking inhale that shit anyway. That's just a convenient excuse to please yourself with this stuff and still be beholden to your feelings and pleasures, pursue pleasure while still getting to wax tough guy and getting to have this image of tough guy, discipline, I'm not beholden to my feelings and all of that. If you're going to excoriate porn, that's got to extend to alcohol and cigarettes too. And I'll say this charitably. A lot of what a charitable understanding of why people reject this is because they think it implies they have to sentence themselves to endless self-flagellation for any version of indulgence, any version of pleasantries or anything like that. And so they're rightfully afraid for that. The problem is most people you have control over your guilt. And what does that mean? That means that most people mistakenly try to make themselves behave well by guilt for behaving bad. So they think that if you take this to extend to alcohol and cigarettes, you're necessarily endlessly guilty for consumption of those two things, which you should feel, a little bit. But if you self-flagellate, you have a problem actually where it encourages you to engage in this behavior more because now it's on your mind. So the prescription is accept and understand conclusively that it is wrong and it is indulgent and it's not tough and it's not pursuant to discipline or transcendence. But you don't guilt yourself to get yourself to stop. You just value the good thing and you just pursue the good thing so much so that you forget to do the bad thing, or you forget to, or your pleasure or your evaluation of the bad thing withers. And this is a long battle. You'll have to do this for a very long time. You're going to still daily drink for quite a while, or daily smoke your cigarettes quite a while. And full disclosure, this does extend to caffeine too, which I indulge in every day. Every day, I crack open that bad boy Monster Rehab or White Monster, like all of us based guys do. And, because somebody might be like, you're a hypocrite. Like, I fully will say it's never rational. It's never justified. I just do it. I just do it every day. But I never rationalize that it is okay or right in any version because it still betrays a valuation of not indulgence. And even then, coming up with this still sort of waxes cope and waxes rationalization because now I'm without the guilt for it, or I've mitigated the guilt for it, which most people still will have a tough time reconciling. Well, if you're not guilty, you're not incentivized to not do the behavior. But I am incentivized to not do the behavior. I'm just weak. I'm just a pussy about it. I like the caffeine and I'm being a total pussy about it, drinking caffeine every day, any version of getting, any food and all of that. Now, there's a part of this that does sound like cope, but it sort of is backed by Christianity. That is that we are fallen in nature. To behave perfectly is to be either a robot or God, well, not even a robot, to be God. And we're not going to be God. We're very distant from God. And a secular version or interpretation of that dichotomy is that you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have this perfect transcendence because you have a body, you have pleasure, you have this infrastructure in your mind that sort of propels you this way. And on some level, you do have to have a balance. Now, a balance doesn't mean 50-50. A balance means not even 80-20, more like 90-10. But you still endlessly pursue 100%. It's a tricky thing. It doesn't seem to make sense, but that is what you're called upon by God to do, is to endlessly pursue closer behavior to Him, closer modeling of Jesus's behavior, the perfect life. But reconciling that you're not Him. So you sort of just endlessly pursue, and it doesn't make rational sense. You're simultaneously saying, well, wait a minute, I'm endlessly pursuing something that I know I also won't get. But you can also value and appreciate and reconcile that putting forth that effort, or trying at the very least, has a value and a merit in and of itself. And you'd be surprised how far you could go. I haven't drank anything in years. I haven't smoked in years or anything like that. And full disclosure too, I smoked a handful of times. I drank a lot in college for a year or so. Thankfully, I figured it out, by the end of the first year of college and the like, I understand that I understood that it wasn't doing anything for me. At the time, the drinking main thing for me was like a whole confidence thing, and I'll tell that story another time. But ultimately, that is to say, I don't come to you not practicing what I preach or portraying an image of perfection or portraying an image of guiltlessness. So now the offense with the right wing doing this stuff, the offense to this classical cope theory on the right wing is they're giving themselves credit where it isn't due, and they're not truly valuing and appreciating free will and agency in and of itself. They just want to wax tough guy. And you can dig into the evolutionary psychology of this, appearing like a tough guy. Why do we all want to do that all the time? It's to get fucking pussy. It's to exude and emanate and advertise masculinity to women. We all vaguely sense that, attracting women has a lot more to do with masculine characteristics, especially of your behavior and or your identity rather than your physicality. Although, of course, that plays much more of a role than they love to LARP. That it does. So the offense is a disrespect and a disregard for agency and free will and authentic masculinity. And the inauthenticity insults everyone's intelligence and insults your life. You spend your life doing that, coming up with these copes and these pathologies and endlessly trying to put on an act. You're wasting so much of your time and energy that could be spent pursuant to goals, fulfillment, transcendence, and the like. So stop fucking coping about alcohol and cigarettes. They're no different. The premise of indulging in those things is no different than indulging in porn. And if somebody indulges in porn, but you indulge in cigarettes and alcohol, and you bully them about it, you're playing the classic bully game of you're not all that much better than that other person. And that's not to say you don't shame pornography consumption at all, but you say that it is all wrong and you have this consistency. And not to be gay and be like, you're a hypocrite, but the discrepancy there implies that it's not about the valuation of even not consuming porn for you. Uh-oh. What happened to my stream here? My Rumble stream going to everywhere else is blurry here. I'm not sure that entirely worked here. Did I lose everything? The space. Okay, so I see my mic still operating on the space here. All right, so I guess I'll wrap this up because this has been quite a while, and I'll try to solve this problem of all these people. Stop fucking coping about these cigarettes and the alcohol. Bullying people about pornography consumption is just pursuant to an image rather than the valuation of the thing in and of itself. And if the pornography discussion goes down the road of, well, alcohol and cigarettes too, have a fucking pair, stay consistent, and then admit you consume these things, admit that it's wrong, and say you just haven't figured that out yet and you're trying to figure that out, and then actively try to figure that out. I think we could all understand things like, well, relax at the end of the day. Take a fucking walk. What does it even mean to relax? Relaxing your physiological body. You can relax by laying down, bro, and watching a fucking TV show. Going for a walk. If you need to relax your stress and anxiety, well, you've just instantly told on yourself that you make no effort in the gym because that physiologically forces that effect in your brain chemistry and all of that. All right. So I think I'm done with my monologue here. I see Thomas is in here. I don't know if is that an IRL friend, Thomas, or is that somebody? I'll add Thomas as a speaker here, see if he wants as any commentary. And let's see, invite speakers. All right. So we have a friend, Thomas, here. You've been invited as a speaker. I think the space in and of itself is a little wonky on X. So I'll see otherwise. Now, let me go to my friends here. So in a phrase, eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment authentically. Something's not working. If you're miserable, whatever, confused, you don't have what you want, something's not fucking working, so something has to change. And sometimes it means you didn't have it right this whole time. It actually necessarily means you didn't have it right this whole time. Whether that's because of your behavior or your perspective or your pathology or something of the like. Something's not working, and you have to have the courage to face the hurt feelings that's going to come with, and the hurt ego and all of that. And there's a whole even subset of this, of development, of understanding the difference between ego and identity. This ego stuff is all essentially about appearance, and more importantly, appearance to yourself. So, all right, I wanted to check, I would have checked on my phone if the space is operative with having people in on the phone. So let's see. Okay, so those are some old notifications. Let's go to still live here on. Okay, so most of the viewers are on the live. That's good. All right, so that tells me that there isn't much with the space. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Watch the recording for how Marchese Daily, my daily show, is going to go, the news and the like, and all of that. I broke down the sections and all of that. I'll have a space open just to make sure you, in case you have some commentary, I'll have a space open during the whole thing, and I'll open up a panel at the end of all my shows. In a phrase, eyes on the prize, finding your fulfillment. And I will see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for Marchese Daily 01. Thanks for tuning in.